All right, let's go ahead to, speaking of propaganda, we have some updates about al-Shifa hospital, which was that central hospital in Gaza. You know, the Israeli government built for weeks a case that this was Hamas's headquarters, that they had this elaborate tunnel system underneath. They sent out multiple images that they said showed where the entrances to these tunnels were. They had graphics that showed all of these elaborate, infrastructure that they claimed was underneath the buildings. They had their famous computer animation of Hamas Grand Central underneath of the hospital. In the first days after they raided al-Shifa, at great cost to civilian life there, they put out very limited evidence of, and it was certainly nothing approaching what they had originally claimed. There were something like 10 guns laid out on a table. CNN and other Western outlets caught them like moving these guns around and manipulating the evidence, something I covered over the weekend. There was a box of dates that was involved. It was limited, okay, in terms of what they were showing. Now they have a new video that they released that they claim shows a much larger tunnel. Let's go ahead and put this up on the screen, and you can see the operational tunnel shaft. This goes on for a little bit of time, but I just want to make sure, in the interest of, everybody seeing the full nature of the evidence that they're providing here, I want to put it out there. They say in their tweet that revealed this video that they found a significant 55-meter-long terrorist tunnel 10 meters underneath the Shifa hospital complex during an intelligence-based operation. The tunnel entrance contains various defense mechanisms, such as a blast-proof door and a firing hole, in an attempt by Hamas to block Israeli forces from entering. For weeks, we've been telling the world about Hamas's cynical use of the residents of Gaza and patients of Shifa Hospital as human shields. Here is more proof. So, a lot of people, I think, will be skeptical of this video to begin with because of all the issues with Israeli government propaganda, as we've just been saying. But Emily, even if you take this at face value that this, genuinely is a tunnel, which is very believable given the fact we know, put this next piece up on the screen, that Israel themselves had built bunkers underneath of this hospital back in 1983 when Israel still ruled Gaza. So it's certainly totally believable that there are tunnels underneath of al-Shifa. I don't think anyone should deny that. But this is a far cry from the original presentation of why raiding this hospital was justified, something that, under international law, hospitals are generally off limits. It requires absolutely exceptional circumstances to justify a raid and seizure and bombing of a hospital as what occurred here. As I mentioned, there was tremendous loss of human life. Dozens of people died because of this raid at this hospital. And, still, and even Western media outlets saying this, nothing approaching what they initially claimed has been proved here.
Yeah, this is what was really, again, interesting to watch the IDF and the Israeli government over the weekend on social media, use social media to sort of win the propaganda war on this question of the hospital. The World Health Organization, which the Israeli government has sort of accused of being complicit in October 7th and complicit in the UN in general, sort of being aware of what Hamas was doing, but not being, publicly sort of raising red flags, et cetera, et cetera. They put out a report on Saturday saying they went in on Saturday. There are 25 health workers and 291 patients remaining in al-Shifa, with several patient deaths having occurred over the previous 2 to 3 days due to the shutting down of medical services. Patients include 32 babies in extremely critical condition, 2 people in intensive care without ventilation, and 22 dialysis patients whose access to life-saving treatment has been severely compromised. So at least as of Saturday, that's sort of the state of affairs and where everything stands. But in addition, that was from Tablet. If people just saw that up on their screen about the Israeli tunnels from back in the 1980s, that was from Tablet, pro-Israel publication.
Right.
So, finding the tunnels probably wasn't the hard part for the Israeli government. It was probably more like accessing the tunnels in a way that, they weren't booby-trapped, that they felt was the safest way that they possibly could. But this is the state of affairs. These are the tunnels, and they are giving CNN interviews. They're giving Fox News interviews where they're actually, there are additional guns, as you talked about. There's additional guns in one of the scenes. They said it's because they found more guns, not that they moved the guns there. They're saying, this was going to be the grand, you mentioned this, central command center, the central nervous system of Hamas was going to be under here. So they're spending the weekend pushing out image after image after image, and you just have to trust them that this is what it says it is, when you also are finding out that things aren't what they say they are. And
right.
again, so if we hypothetically give them the total benefit of the doubt, say everything they're saying is correct, they are going about it so poorly because nobody has any reason to believe it when you make missteps like this time and again and again. And the cynical person, of course, will say, well, it's not a misstep. It's an intentional propaganda campaign, which that's what everyone does in war. But it's just when you have a hospital involved. When Ryan and I were talking about it last week, it was like, this is a situation that really is reflective of so many of the different tensions in the conflict. Like this one is almost symbolic of the conflict as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's right. And that's part of why they have been so aggressively trying to prove their case. And also, at the same time they're trying to prove the case, they're also rapidly moving the goalposts, which we'll get to in a moment. But to your point, Emily, about the skepticism from the Western press, put this up on the screen. I mean, you had basically every major media outlet nicely, very diplomatically, like, come on, y'all. You said this was Hamas Grand Central, and we've seen nothing like Hamas Grand Central. You've got CNN with that analysis. Video suggests IDF might have rearranged weaponry at al-Shifa prior to news crew visits. There is also a BBC report that I played over the weekend to the same effect. The Economist asking, was Israel's attack on al-Shifa hospital justified? And if you read the column, the suggested answer is very much no. The Washington Post, Israeli troops scour Gaza's al-Shifa hospital for evidence of Hamas. And again, the narrative beforehand was, this is Hamas's headquarters. That's why, listen, we hate it. We hate that the civilian, we have no beef with civilians, but we have to go in because this is Hamas's headquarters. Here's our computer animation that shows you we know exactly where these things are, and this is what we're gonna find. And the presentation of media outlets of like, this is where the tunnels are. We've got them pinpointed. We know where to go. The US government, the day before, coming out, John Kirby, NSC spokesperson, saying, yeah, we have intelligence as well that backs this up. I don't think it's an accident. That's the very next day that this raid occurs. And still nothing approaching what they, originally claimed has panned out. I also don't think it's an accident that now, because of the loss of international legitimacy surrounding this raid of this hospital, and also, what they've been doing overall in Gaza, I don't think it's an accident that has pushed them closer to accepting some sort of a hostage deal and some sort of a 5-day ceasefire, because the Biden administration has been pathetic in their pushback. The most important thing that they said is that there are absolutely no red lines for Israel. But you can see Biden putting out this op-ed saying, we're actually going to maybe sanction these illegal settlers, increasing pressure behind the scenes, et cetera, that Israel is feeling at least some pressure because their public case has so clearly fallen apart. And the last piece, let's put this up on the screen, from the World Health Organization. Emily read some of this report. They said due to time limits, I think they were only allowed inside, they said for 1 hour inside the hospital, which they described as a death zone, and the situation as desperate. Signs of shelling and gunfire inside this hospital were evident. The team saw a mass grave at the entrance of the hospital and was told that more than 80 people were buried there. So there's no doubt that absolute horrors unfolded here. We know that around, I think, 4 of the premature babies that had to be removed from the incubators because they ran out of fuel died. We know everyone in the intensive care unit died. We know that there were patients who were, effectively forced to evacuate, who were in no condition to travel, who were moving by foot. We know the horrific conditions that doctors were facing as they were trying their best to care for patients. And, it's Israel scrambling to try to prove that this was all worth it and making a case that I think very few people are believing at this point.
The word scrambling, I think, is really accurate because actually over the weekend they released video of hostages being brought into al-Shifa on October 7th.
Yes.
And again, a lot of people said, look, this proves this is Hamas Central Command. They're taking the hostages to a hospital. It's also the largest, most advanced hospital in Gaza. So again, I'm not sure that proves it. And at one point, someone from the IDF, maybe even the IDF itself, said the video is on our side. I think they told media that the video, and they weren't talking just about that particular video, they were talking about all the video in general. They're saying the video is on our side. That quote to me, again, I actually don't dismiss the possibility that al-Shifa, given the fact that it had tunnels that have been there since the 1980s, may have been used as Hamas headquarters. I don't think that's impossible, but even if you take that, even if you agree with me that, it's not impossible that this is Hamas headquarters, obviously Hamas is operating underground. Obviously Hamas planned what happened on October 7th somewhere. So even if you sort of say that, yes, this is possible that this is a Hamas central command, here's actually the word that the IDF used, quote, well-hidden terrorist infrastructure in the complex. Well-hidden terrorist infrastructure in the complex. Okay, so even if you do that, what they have produced so far is not what you would expect if you said that there was a well-hidden terrorist infrastructure in the complex. That's just not what we've seen so far, which is why they're coming out now and getting ahead of it and saying things like the video is on our side.
Yeah. Hey guys, if you like that video, go to breakingpoints.com, become a premium subscriber, and help us build the best independent media organization on the planet.
That's right. We're subscriber funded. We're building something new. We want to replace these failing mainstream media organizations.
So again, to subscribe, it's breakingpoints.com.